Hey everybody, this is Sean. Just wanted to document some of this, hopefully it'll help you guys later. I received my 737 throttle a few days ago, and I just started stripping it down, trying to clean it up. And I got this box here because it is pretty top heavy on the back. But I wanted to kind of walk through what I found. I know there's some other videos out there, but hopefully I'll give you a little bit more inner workings of it. So kind of starting on this side, we've got right here is our trim gauge, which I've taken the plastic off, but you can see how that kind of works. And then you've got this hinge underneath that as I pull this hinge up and down, that's moving that. And one of the other guys, Fred, I saw has mounted a servo directly to this, although I think he did it on the other side, if you can see inside here. So I'll probably end up doing the same thing. This gear is where the trim wheel sits, which I've taken off to strip this down. I've tried to clean it up. This looks dirty now, but this was much dirtier before I started. I just pretty much degreased the heck out of this thing, tried to wipe as much as I could. There's still quite a bit you can maybe see down here, and then definitely dirty in here, but this is a lot cleaner than it was. And I'm probably going to end up stripping down this white bottom part, taking this completely out, and just kind of keeping this a little more flush, and hopefully it won't tilt. Alright, so getting kind of back to this. So here's our parking brake, and then in here, you see my hand, here's the rod. As I push this rod up and down, that's what activates the parking brake lever, which I will eventually, I'm not sure how I'm going to wire that up yet. I got an idea from another member on the Cockpit Builder site about doing a door lock actuator for a car door. So I'm probably going to end up cutting this rod down so I can mount that car door actuator down here and use that to actuate this parking brake. And then of course we've got our parking brake LED right here. In our fuel cutoff, and then we have our speed brake. So what's interesting on the speed brake here is it actually does have a switch which I plan to use, and I'm going to tap into all the existing wiring that I can. And speaking of wiring, we do have all these connectors down here in yellow. These are the existing wiring, so I'll be chopping those up and trying to figure out where the wire goes to what. But you can see here the speed brake here. So when they pull the speed brake, it actually has a locking mechanism, which I never realized, right here. So if I try to pull it back without it, it's locked. I have to physically pull this up, and then I can move this speed brake. Now, what's interesting is the way this you can see this this bar right here, which again, I'm going to model this whole thing based off of Fred's existing pictures that he's taken, but he mounted a servo down here, which I'm going to start today trying to build that into. So this rod will push the throttle forward and back once that's all set up, and then it locks, and then I can use that switch to activate and say that the spoiler is all the way up. So one other thing I noticed on some of the other builds, it looks like most of the people that ordered their throttle, they had all the existing wire from the existing throttle that was long enough. Unfortunately, I did not. My wiring was cut inside here down to about this far, so I had to completely replace the wire for the throttles to be able to utilize it in the motors. And I'll give you an example. So I've taken apart this middle portion of it, and then as you can see, as I rotate these throttles, those cables and wires are moving. If I were to pull, so I'm going to pull these, and you'll see that's how that moves. And then the same, these bottom wires down here at the bottom would pull it forward. Now what I've had to do, as you can see hopefully in here, these are a very makeshift mount. So I bought some galvanized steel cable, not the exact same size, which I think worked out better in my situation. But here, and I'll show you an example what. So normally, this is the existing cable that I pulled off. Normally, this ball would be in here. And there's a little piece of steel wire that sits over top of this to hold that ball in place. But normally, there'd be this ball that sits in there, and there'd be cable coming out both sides of the ball. And that would allow it to latch in to these throttles and pull it forward and backwards. Now, since I have no idea how to take this off or how to put a new one on, I decided basically to just tie these in a knot, the new cable that I bought, tie those in a knot, and then use those steel wire to keep them in place. And it seems to be working out okay. Hopefully it lasts for many pulls and pushes, but it seems to be working out just okay. So that's the basic operation of these throttles. And then what's interesting is when in a normal situation, now I kind of have to pull these up. Use my knee here. So what you'll see is these cables continue to move even when I put this in reverse. What happens when I put those in reverse is it actually pulls the cables backwards. So the same way that the cables are used to drive this motor forward and backwards, those same cables are used to go even further back. And let me see if I can show you an example here. So keep an eye on those center balls. Now as I pull these reverse thrust up, you can see those move back. So that's how that situation works. And then of course that's without the reverse. Now here's another interesting thing, is when you pull the reverse up, it also pulls up on this latch for the speed brake. So that initiates or allows for a consistent, without having to actually pull up on the speed brake, for that speed brake to be deployed automatically. And then, kind of in the same way that the throttles work, is kind of the same way as the fuel cutoff. So these are also on a cable system. And you can probably see this cable down here move as I pull it up and down. I will be removing the cables from this since I don't need them, and replacing these, which actually there's already switches. I'll show you. These are already wired up to switches. So I don't know if you can see down here, but as I pull up on those fuel cutoffs, these relays or switches are activated, so I can leverage these existing switches and then just pull the cables out. So I'm just pulling up on these throttles, and hopefully you can see that. Okay. And it's really a lot easier or simpler than I expected. And of course, stab trim cutoffs, these are just normal switches, which I'm sure I'll just be able to wire up the same cable. And now the flaps. So in here in the flap, you can see this track here, hopefully, where the cable. So the flaps also operate on a cable mechanism. And so as I move this flaps, you can hopefully see those cables moving. And again, I'm going to be removing these cables and figuring out a way that I can wire up actually I already know the potentiometer. So again, Fred has a potentiometer that comes out of here. I just need to figure out how to attach the steel push rod from some point on here down to this potentiometer. But I'm going to be stealing Fred's work, so thank you, Fred, for all the help and trial and error already. And then of course down here is where I'll be mounting all the motors and the potentiometers for the throttles. Now I know Fred mounted his motor board up here. I'm probably not going to do that. I'm probably going to, since I plan to put the pedestal on top of this, I will figure out a way to have that board reside inside the pedestal, and then maybe just make some kind of connector, wire up some connector for all the components, electronics from this, in case I ever need to separate the pedestal. And then of course on the throttle we also have our auto throttle disengage and our takeoff go around switches. There's a horn cutoff, just a standard switch. And then oh, another thing, so on the throttles, if you can see those, so when I hit reverse, those switches get activated, and then when I go forward, those switches get activated. So it looks like once I hit these forward position, now this isn't even all the way full throttle, this is about 60% full throttle, that's when those switches get activated, and that appears to be when the takeoff warning check gets activated. So I can use those switches to determine a takeoff position, or takeoff throttle position, which I may or may not need, but you can see when I go reversed, forward, those get activated. So I think that's about it. I've removed all the pulleys. There was a ton of pulleys underneath here that I removed so I could salvage them to rebuild. Again, Fred built a platform in here to mount his pulley system, and I'm going to probably steal the same idea from him. But I think that's it. Thanks, guys.